The ring hit the hospital floor with a sound so small you'd think it wouldn't matter. But in that moment, as the platinum band rolled across the sterile tiles of my treatment room, that tiny sound might as well have been thunder. I looked up, from my IV line, to see Nathan standing at the foot of my recliner, his face a mask of rehearsed sympathy that didn't reach his eyes. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I can't do this anymore, Becca, he said, his voice oddly formal, like he was declining a business proposal rather than ending a marriage. This isn't what I signed up for. The nurse beside me froze, her hand still on the chemotherapy pump. She looked between us, then quietly excused herself, giving my shoulder a gentle squeeze as she left. I was too stunned to speak, watching as my husband of 8 years, the man who had vowed in sickness and in health just a breath ago in our timeline, delivered the news that he was leaving me. 3 weeks after my diagnosis, in the middle of my second chemo session. I didn't cry. Not then. Something cold and clarifying washed over me instead as I watched him shift his weight, checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. "Is there someone else?" I asked, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Nathan's hesitation was answer enough. He looked away, a flush creeping up his neck. "That's not the point. I'm not cut out for this, Becca. The hospitals, the sickness. I need to live my life." As if cancer had been my choice. As if I'd selected this detour for our lives from some cosmic menu of inconveniences. I looked down at my wedding ring, still spinning to a stop on the floor where he'd tossed it after I'd returned it to him. He didn't even bother to pick it, up as he turned and walked out the door, leaving me tethered to my IV pole, poison dripping into my veins to fight the disease while a different kind of poison leaked into my heart. That was the moment everything changed. Not the diagnosis, but this abandonment that I never saw coming. What I didn't know then, as I sat clutching the armrests of that treatment chair, was that this ending would spark something unexpected. Because while Nathan was walking out that door, someone else was about to walk back into my life in a way I never anticipated. My brother Alex was about to become my unexpected champion. And what he did next made Nathan wish he'd never left that hospital room. I used to think I had everything figured out, a career most people would envy as marketing director at Horizon Media in Lakeside. A beautiful home that Nathan and I had lovingly renovated together, documenting every paint color and fixture choice on our shared Instagram. A marriage that I believed was rock solid. We were that couple who still held hands during movies and surprised each other with coffee in bed on random Tuesday mornings. Then came the lump. Small, almost dismissible. Found during a shower on an ordinary Sunday evening. I almost didn't mention it to Nathan, but when I did, he hugged me and said, "It's probably nothing, but let's get it checked to be safe." Safe. What a concept. 2 weeks later, I sat in Dr. Wong's office as she explained what stage 2 breast cancer meant. The treatment plan, the surgery, the chemotherapy, the statistical chances. I remember nodding along, taking notes in the leather-bound planner Nathan had given me for our anniversary, writing down words that suddenly seemed from another language. Mastectomy, lymph nodes, adriamycin, Taxol. Nathan held my hand during that appointment, his grip so tight it almost hurt. He asked intelligent questions about recovery times and alternative treatments. He even made Dr. Wong laugh with a joke about finally getting to see his wife in a variety of stylish headscarves. I believed him when he said we would face this, together. The first week after diagnosis, he was perfect, researching clinical trials, arranging meal deliveries, setting up a shared calendar for my appointments, holding me when I cried in the shower, where I thought he couldn't hear me. The second week, I noticed small changes. He started going to the office earlier, coming home later. Our conversations became briefer, more practical. The intimacy between us, even just the casual touches when passing in the kitchen, began to evaporate like morning dew under a harsh sun. By the third week, just before my second chemo session, Nathan had moved his pillow to the guest room. "Just to make sure you get enough rest," he explained. I pretended to believe him. Then came that day in the treatment room, the ring on the E floor, the end. I finished my infusion alone, mechanically thanking the nurse who returned with sympathetic eyes and extra graham crackers. When it was time to leave, I realized I had no ride home. Nathan had always driven me. I called an Uber, the ultimate sign of modern displacement. As I stood outside Pinecrest Medical Center waiting for my ride, an SUV screeched to a halt in front of me instead. My brother Alex jumped out, his tie askew, his normally neat dark hair ruffled as if he'd been running his hands through it. "Becca," he called, rushing toward me. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." I stared at him, confused. Alex lived in Seattle, a 2-hour drive away. He worked at Bennett & Associates, a law firm where he was on track to make partner. We spoke weekly, but I wasn't expecting to see him. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sounding far away even to my own ears. His expression shifted from worry to confusion. "Nathan called me. He said you needed a ride, but he had an eye emergency at work. When I couldn't reach you, I decided to just drive over." He studied my face. "What's wrong? Did something happen during treatment?" I laughed then, a hollow sound that startled both of us. "Nathan left me," I said simply. "Not for work. He left me, the marriage, during chemo." Alex's face went through a journey, confusion, disbelief, and then a fury so intense it transformed his features into something I barely recognized. My gentle, diplomatic brother looked capable of violence in that moment. "He did what?" Alex's voice was dangerously quiet. "Can we not do this in the hospital pickup zone?" I gestured vaguely at the security guard eyeing us. "I just want to go home." Alex nodded curtly, helping me into his car with surprising gentleness given the tension radiating from him. As he drove, I told him everything in a detached voice, as if recounting a movie I'd seen rather than the collapse of my life. "He's been pulling away for weeks," I concluded. "Today, he just made it official." "Did he say where he's going? Where he's staying?" Alex asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "No." And I didn't ask. I leaned my head against the window, suddenly exhausted. The chemotherapy was hitting me harder than the first round. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," Alex said firmly. "Everything about this matters, Becca." When we arrived home, the house felt different. Not dramatically. Nathan hadn't cleared out his belongings or anything so definitive. But I could sense the absence already, like air pressure before a storm. Small things were missing: his laptop, the charging cables that usually snaked across his bedside table, his favorite jacket no longer on the hook by the door. Alex insisted on staying. He made calls to his office, rearranging meetings and delegating cases. Then he made us tea and sat across from me at the kitchen island Nathan and I had picked out together during our renovation. "What do you need?" he asked, direct and practical as always. I blinked at him. "Need? Do you need to cry, scream, break things? Whatever it is, I'm here for it." I considered his offer, searching for the appropriate emotion, but found only numbness. "I think I need to sleep," I said finally. "The treatment makes me so tired." He nodded. "Go rest. I'll be here when you wake up." I slept for 14 hours straight, a dreamless chemical sleep. When I woke, disoriented in the dim light of early evening, I could hear Alex's voice from somewhere in the house. He was talking to someone, his tone clipped and professional. His lawyer voice. "No, that's not how this works," he was saying. She contributed significantly to the development of that app. The fact that her name isn't on the patent doesn't negate her contribution. especially given the timing of the filing. I pulled myself out of bed, wrapping a cardigan around, my shoulders against the persistent chill that seemed to follow me since starting treatment. Following Alex's voice, I found him in Nathan's home office, surrounded by papers and with my husband's desktop computer powered on. He looked up when I entered, quickly ending his call. "Hey," he said. "How are you feeling?" "What are you doing?" I asked, eyeing the papers spread across the desk. Alex hesitated, which was unusual for him. My brother was normally straightforward to a fault. "Protecting you," he said finally. "From what?" "From Nathan." Alex picked up a document, holding it out to me. "Did you know about this?" I took the paper, squinting at the legal language. It was a filing for a new tech startup, Metropulse, with Nathan listed as the sole founder and owner. The date on Sabatazi. The document made my stomach clench. It had been filed 3 days after my diagnosis. "What is this?" I asked, although a sick feeling was already building in my gut. "It's the app you told me about last Christmas, the marketing analytics platform you two were developing together." Alex's expression was grim. "The one you said was your idea. Originally, based on your work at Horizon." I sank into the chair opposite the desk. "He said we were putting it on hold because of my treatment." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "That we'd revisit it when I was better." Alex shook his head. "He incorporated without you, filed the patent application without you. And from what I can see in these emails," he gestured to the screen, "he's been courting investors for the past 2 weeks. He paused. "And Vanessa Carter is listed as the chief marketing officer." "Vanessa?" My mind flashed to Nathan's coworker, tall, confident, with a laugh that always seemed to draw my husband's attention at company events. "That doesn't make sense. She works in development, not marketing." "Well, according to their pitch deck, she's now handling all marketing for Metropulse, using strategy language that sounds awfully similar to proposals I've heard you make." The numbness that had enveloped me since Nathan's departure began to crack, allowing something hot and painful to seep through. "He stole my idea?" "It looks that way," Alex confirmed, his voice gentle despite the anger evident in his posture. "And if I had to guess, Vanessa is probably the someone else he's involved with." I stood up abruptly, a wave of nausea hitting me that had nothing to do with chemotherapy. "I need some air." Alex followed me onto the back deck, where I gripped the railing and took deep breaths of the cool evening air. Lake Washington stretched before us, the distant lights of Seattle twinkling on the horizon. "I know this is overwhelming," Alex said, standing beside me. "But you need to understand what's happening here. Nathan isn't just leaving you. He's attempting to cut you out of something that should partially belong to you. And he's doing it when you're most vulnerable." "Why?" I asked, the simple question containing all my confusion and hurt. "Why now? Why like this?" Alex was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes people reveal who they truly are in crisis," he said, finally. "I don't think Nathan's suddenly become a different person. I think he's showing you who he's always been, but circumstances allowed him to hide it before." I wiped at tears I hadn't realized were falling. "What do I do now?" "Fight him." "While I'm fighting cancer? I don't have the energy for both." My brother placed a hand on my shoulder. "That's why I'm here. You focus on getting better. Let me handle Nathan." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, suddenly wary of the determination in his voice. Alex smiled, but it wasn't the warm expression I was used to seeing on my brother's face. This was something cooler, more calculated. "It means I'm going to make sure he doesn't get away with this. Any of it. I don't want revenge, Alex. I just want to survive the cancer and this betrayal." I turned to face him. "Promise me you won't do anything crazy." "I promise I won't do anything illegal," he countered, which wasn't quite the same thing. But Becca, what he's doing isn't just cruel. It's potentially actionable. You've been married for 8 years. You supported him while he got his MBA. You contributed directly to the development of that app. And he's trying to cut you out entirely while you're undergoing cancer treatment. He shook his head. That's not happening on my watch. I was too tired to argue. The emotional whiplash of the past 24 hours, combined with the physical toll of chemotherapy, had drained me completely. I'm going back to bed, I said. Get some rest, Alex replied. Tomorrow, we start figuring things out. True to his word, Alex was still there the next morning. And the next. By the third day, he had unofficially moved into our guest room, setting up a makeshift office and informing his firm he would be working remotely indefinitely. You don't have to put your life on hold for me, I protested over the breakfast. He insisted on making me, even though the smell of food still made me nauseated. I'm not putting my life on hold, he countered, sliding a cup of ginger tea toward me. I'm prioritizing what matters. Right now, that's you. As my third week of treatment progressed, Alex became my unexpected rock. He drove me to appointments, took meticulous notes during consultations with Dr. Wong, and ensured I took my medications on schedule. He joined the online support group for caregivers that Nathan had signed up for but never attended. He learned to mix the anti-nausea medications into smoothies I could tolerate, and when I wasn't looking, he was building a case. I discovered how extensive his efforts were one evening when I came downstairs to find him in an intense conversation with my best friend and colleague, Olivia. The timestamp on the email confirms it, she was saying, pointing to something on Alex's laptop. Nathan approached Vanessa about joining his new venture 2 days after Becca's diagnosis, and look at the language he uses. Fresh start, unburdened opportunity. The subtext is pretty clear. They both looked up guiltily when I cleared my throat from the doorway. Should I even ask? I leaned against the doorframe, too tired to summon proper indignation at their secretive behavior. Olivia rushed over to hug me, careful of the port inserted beneath my collarbone. Hey, warrior woman, how are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck that then backed up and hit me again, I said dryly. What are you two conspiring about? Alex and Olivia exchanged glances. We're gathering information, Alex said finally, about Nathan, Metropulse, and the timing of certain decisions. Olivia nodded. When Alex told me what Nathan did, I started paying attention at work. Nathan and Vanessa have both taken personal days on the same dates. They've been having strategy meetings that no one else is invited to. And they're using resources from Horizon, the company's subscription data services, the design team's time, to develop materials for their startup. Which is not only ethically questionable, but potentially a violation of their employment contracts, Alex added. I moved further into the room, sinking onto the couch. So, what's the plan here? Workplace revenge? Because I still have to work with these people, Alex, at least until my medical leave. The plan, my brother said carefully, is to ensure you get what you're legally entitled to, both from your marriage and from your intellectual property contributions to Metropulse. And yes, if there are professional consequences for Nathan's choices, I'm not particularly concerned about that. I studied his face, seeing the barely contained anger he'd been managing since the day at the hospital. Have you talked to him? At all? Does he even know you're staying here? We've exchanged texts, Alex admitted. He asked for the login to your joint investment account. I told him all financial matters would need to go through proper legal channels given the circumstances. You what? I sat up straighter. Alex, those are our accounts. Our money. Exactly. Our money, not just his. And the first thing most divorcing spouses try to do is secure assets for themselves. Alex's expression softened. I'm not trying to escalate things, Becca. I'm trying to prevent him from taking advantage of you while you're focusing on your health. Olivia sat beside me, taking my hand. Nathan's not behaving honorably here. We're just making sure you're protected. I looked between them. These two people who had stepped up without hesitation when Nathan stepped away. Something shifted. Inside me. The first spark of something beyond numbness, beyond hurt. Something that might eventually become resolve. Okay, I said finally. Tell me everything. Over the next hour, they laid out what they'd discovered. Nathan had not only started the company with my marketing concept, but had used my research, my market analysis, even some of my client insights from Horizon Media. He was presenting all of this as his original work to potential investors, with Vanessa now positioned as the marketing genius behind the platform. Meanwhile, he had begun liquidating smaller joint investments. Nothing that would immediately raise flags, but enough to create a financial cushion for himself. He had changed the passwords on our cloud storage, where most of my early work on the app concept was saved. He's trying to erase your contributions, Alex concluded, both to the company and to your shared assets. Can he do that? I asked, my marketing director brain already calculating the potential value of MetriPulse if it succeeded. The concept had significant potential. That's why I'd been so excited about it in the first place. Not if we can help it, Alex said, firmly. I've already spoken with a colleague who specializes in intellectual property law. We have options. Just then, my phone chimed with a text. Nathan's name appeared on the screen, sending an uncomfortable jolt through me. It was the first direct contact since the hospital. Need to stop by tomorrow to pick up more clothes and my golf clubs. We'll be there around 10 a.m. No, how are you feeling? No acknowledgement of what he'd done, just a practical notification, as if we were casual roommates instead of spouses, one of whom was battling cancer, while the other had betrayed her in multiple ways. I showed the message to Alex and Olivia. Perfect, Alex said, an unexpected smile crossing his face. It's time he and I had a proper conversation. Alex, I warned, I don't want a scene. No scenes, he promised, though something in his expression made me doubt him. But Nathan needs to understand that his actions have consequences, and tomorrow's as good a time as any for that lesson to begin. As Olivia drove me to my support group meeting later that evening, giving Alex time to work on what he mysteriously referred to as preparations, I found myself wondering what exactly my brother had planned. The numbness that had protected me was wearing thin, allowing other emotions to filter through. Anger, betrayal, and something else I couldn't quite name yet. Not hope, exactly, but perhaps its distant relative, determination. Whatever Alex was planning, I realized I trusted him completely. While the treatment continued to attack the cancer in my body, my brother was preparing to fight a different battle on my behalf. And despite everything, that knowledge gave me a strange sense of comfort as we drove through the darkening streets of Lakeside, the waters of the lake reflecting the first stars of evening. Nathan might have left me during the worst moment of my life. But Alex had shown up, and something told me that before this was over, my husband would deeply regret his choice. I woke to the sound of soft knocking on my bedroom door. The digital clock on my nightstand read 9:15 a.m. Alex peeked his head in, already dressed in what I called his lawyer armor, a crisp navy suit that made his shoulders look broader, a subtle pinstripe tie that suggested authority without trying too hard. Morning, he said, balancing a mug of tea in one hand. I made your ginger tea with honey. Dr. Wong said it might help with the nausea. I pushed myself to sitting position, fighting the now familiar wave of dizziness. Why are you dressed like you're heading to court? Alex set the mug on my nightstand. Nathan's coming by at 10, remember? I find people tend to take conversations more seriously when I'm dressed like this. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Professional habit. I took a careful sip of tea. Please tell me you're not planning some dramatic confrontation. I don't have the energy for that today. No drama, he assured me. Just a clear conversation about expectations moving forward. After years of being his sister, I knew better. Alex. Trust me, he said, sitting on the edge of my bed. I'm not going to do anything you wouldn't approve of. Eventually. That wasn't entirely reassuring, but I was too tired to argue. The past week had been a blur of treatment side effects, emotional shock, and gradual revelations about just how methodically Nathan had planned his exit. Each day seemed to bring some new discovery: a credit card application in his name only, emails with Vanessa that predated my diagnosis, appointments with a real estate agent to look at downtown apartments. Do you want to be present for this? Alex asked, interrupting my thoughts. I considered the prospect of facing Nathan, of watching his carefully composed expression of sympathy that never quite hid the impatience beneath, of seeing him collect his belongings from our home as if he were simply upgrading to a better model of life. No, I decided, but I don't want you to do anything extreme. Alex patted my blanket-covered knee. Define extreme. Nothing that would get you disbarred. He laughed at that, a genuine sound that momentarily broke the tension. That's a low bar, but I'll take it. He stood up. Why don't you take a bath while I handle Nathan? The lavender Epsom salts Dr. Wong recommended are under the sink. I nodded, suddenly grateful for the excuse to hide in the bathroom during Nathan's visit. Alex gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze before leaving, closing the door behind him. 40 minutes later, I was neck-deep in fragrant, warm water when I heard the doorbell. I tensed, then deliberately relaxed each muscle group as the meditation app had taught me. I couldn't make out specific words, but I could hear the murmur of male voices from downstairs, Alex's measured tone, and occasionally Nathan's more agitated responses. I tried not to listen, focusing instead on the sensation of warm water against my skin, the scent of lavender, the steady in and out of my breath. But my attention kept drifting to the conversation happening below. Were they discussing the divorce? The company? Me? I hated the idea of being talked about, my illness and my marriage dissected like case studies while I soaked upstairs like some invalid. When the voices grew louder, I couldn't resist. I carefully stepped out of the tub, wrapped myself in my robe, and cracked the bathroom door. Absolutely unacceptable, Alex was saying, his voice carried clearly up the stairwell. You don't get to rewrite history because it's convenient for you. This isn't your business, Alex. Nathan's voice had that clipped quality it got when he was trying to maintain control. This is between Becca and me. You made it my business when you walked out on my sister during chemo. You made it my business when you tried to steal her work. And you definitely made it my business when you started moving assets around 3 days after her diagnosis. A heavy silence followed. I don't know what she's told you, Nathan began, his tone condescending. But the company was always my idea. Becca provided some feedback, that's all. And as for our finances, let me stop you right there, Alex interrupted. I'm not interested in your version of events. I've seen the emails, Nathan. I've seen the Google Docs with Becca's comments time-stamped months before you claim to have conceived the idea. I've seen the investor pitch deck that uses entire paragraphs lifted directly from her marketing strategy documents. Another silence, this one tense enough that I could feel it from upstairs. You went through my computer? Nathan's voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet. I didn't have to. Becca's name is still on the home network. All of your cloud backups are accessible, on any device in this house. For someone launching a tech company, your understanding of basic data security is surprisingly limited. I pressed a hand to my mouth, suddenly caught between horror and a strange urge to laugh. Alex hadn't just been gathering information. He'd been systematically building a case using Nathan's own digital footprint. This is invasion of privacy, Nathan sputtered. It's completely legal, Alex finished for him. And before you start making threats, let me be very clear about your situation. You've taken proprietary information from your current employer to start a competing business. You've attempted to exclude your spouse from intellectual property she helped develop. You've begun liquidating joint assets without disclosure or consent during a health crisis. A crash made me jump. Something had been knocked over or thrown. What exactly do you want? Nathan demanded, his voice tight with anger. It's simple, Alex replied, his tone conversely growing calmer as Nathan's elevated. You're going to properly compensate Becca for her contributions to Metropulse. You're going to ensure she maintains comprehensive health insurance coverage through the divorce. And you're going to provide appropriate financial support given the length of your marriage and her current medical situation. Or what? Or I share this file with Horizon Media's legal department, the investors you're currently courting, and, if necessary, with the appropriate authorities regarding potential corporate espionage charges. I leaned against the doorframe, my legs suddenly unsteady. This was a side of my brother I'd never seen, calculated, almost ruthless in his precision. This is blackmail, Nathan accused. No, this is consequences, Alex corrected. There's a difference. Blackmail involves threatening to reveal information for personal gain. I'm simply informing you that your actions have created legal and professional vulnerabilities that will be addressed one way or another. How destructive that process is for you depends entirely on your cooperation. Heavy footsteps paced across the hardwood floor. I could picture Nathan running his hand through his hair the way he did when feeling cornered. I need to think, he finally said. I need to talk to Becca directly. That's not happening today, Alex replied firmly. She's resting. And frankly, she doesn't owe you a conversation on your timetable. This is still my house, too. Nathan's voice rose again. Actually, it's not. The mortgage is in Becca's name. You're on the deed, but she's the borrower of record. Another detail you seem to have forgotten. This was news to me. When we bought the house 4 years ago, my credit score had been better than Nathan's due to his business school loans. We'd put the mortgage in my name to secure a better rate, with the understanding that it was still our joint investment. Now, Alex continued, you can take your golf clubs and whatever clothes you need, but I expect a formal response to our terms within 48 hours. After that, things become much less amicable. The front door opened. This isn't over, Nathan said, his voice tight. For your sake, I hope it is, Alex replied. By the way, when you speak to Vanessa, you might want to remind her that the non-compete clause in her employment contract is particularly stringent. I'm sure Horizon's legal team would be interested in reviewing her recent activities. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the pictures on my bedroom wall. I heard Alex exhale heavily, followed by the sound of ice clinking into a glass downstairs. I retreated to my bed, processing what I'd overheard. By the time Alex checked on me 20 minutes later, I had worked myself into a state somewhere, between awe and distress. How much of that did you hear? He asked, noting my expression. Enough, I admitted. Did you really find evidence that he stole my work for the app? Alex sat in the armchair near the window. It wasn't even well hidden, Becca. The original concept documents have your name in the metadata. The business plan contains entire sections from your marketing presentations. He literally copied and pasted chunks from your work portfolio without even changing the formatting. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping. That's just lazy. It's also legally actionable. Alex studied me carefully. Are you upset about my approach? I considered the question. I'm not sure how I feel, I admitted. Part of me is horrified that things have gotten so adversarial so quickly. Another part is relieved that someone is fighting for me when I don't have the strength to do it myself. I twisted the edge of my blanket. What did you mean about the health insurance? Under COBRA, you can maintain coverage through Nathan's workplace plan for up to 36 months after divorce, but you'd be responsible for the full premium, which is expensive. I want him to cover those costs as part of the settlement, at least until your treatment is complete and you can secure independent coverage. The methodical way Alex had thought through every aspect of my situation brought unexpected tears to my eyes. While Nathan had been calculating his escape, Alex had been calculating how to protect me, not just emotionally, but practically. "What happens now?" I asked, wiping my cheeks. "Now we wait. Nathan will either come to the table voluntarily, or he'll dig in his heels and we'll have to escalate. And if he escalates first?" Alex's expression hardened just slightly. "Then, he'll learn why I've never lost a case involving family law." The following morning brought my 4th chemo treatment. Alex drove me to Pinecrest Medical Center, waiting patiently in the car as per COVID protocols until I was settled in my treatment chair. As the nurse prepared my IV, I was surprised to see Dr. Wong herself come into the infusion room. "Rebecca," she greeted me warmly, pulling up a chair. "Do you mind if I sit with you for a moment?" "Of course not," I said, though her presence made me anxious. Oncologists didn't typically attend routine infusions unless something was wrong. She seemed to read my concern. "Your blood work looks good," she assured me. "I just wanted to check in on the personal situation your brother mentioned." I blinked in surprise. "Alex talked to you?" "He called my office yesterday. He was concerned about the impact of stress on your treatment outcomes, which is a valid medical consideration." She adjusted her glasses. "He mentioned your husband has left the marriage?" The direct question, asked with such professional compassion, broke through whatever composure I'd been maintaining. To my horror, I began to cry. Not delicate tears, but embarrassing, hiccuping sobs that drew concerned glances from other patients. Dr. Wong handed me a tissue from her pocket. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to upset you." "It's not your fault," I managed between sobs. "I just haven't really talked about it. Not like this." The nurse paused in her preparations, looking uncertainly between us. Dr. Wong nodded at her to continue. "Rebecca," Dr. Wong said once I'd calmed somewhat, "what you're experiencing is an additional trauma layered on top of the cancer diagnosis. Both need treatment." She reached into her white coat and pulled out a business card. "This is Dr. Sarah Linden. She's a psycho-oncologist, a psychiatrist who specializes in helping cancer patients navigate the emotional aspects of treatment. I'd like you to consider seeing her." I took the card, turning it over in my fingers. "I don't know if I can handle more appointments." "She can coordinate with your treatment schedule," Dr. Wong assured me. "And she offers telehealth options." She hesitated. "I've seen this situation more often than you might think. Partners who leave during a serious illness." "Really?" I looked up, surprised. I thought it was just me, just my bad luck in choosing a husband. Dr. Wong shook her head. "Studies show that women with serious health diagnoses face a significantly higher rate of divorce or separation than men with similar diagnoses. It's an unfortunate pattern, not a reflection on you." Something about this information, the knowledge that what Nathan had done wasn't unique, wasn't even unusual, provided an odd relief. It wasn't just that I had chosen badly. It was that some men, when faced with a wife's illness, made a particular kind of selfish choice. "I'll call Dr. Linden," I promised, tucking the card into my purse. Dr. Wong nodded, satisfied. "Your brother also mentioned concerns about your health insurance coverage." "He's being thorough," I said, feeling a rush of gratitude for Alex's foresight. "He is," she agreed. "But I wanted you to know that Pinecrest has programs for patients experiencing insurance transitions. If there's any gap in your coverage, we can help ensure your treatment continues uninterrupted." The knot of anxiety that had been sitting in my chest since Nathan's departure loosened just slightly. "Thank you," I said sincerely. Dr. Wong patted my arm before standing. Focus on healing, Rebecca, the medical aspects and the emotional ones. Let your support system handle the rest. As the chemo drugs began to flow into my veins, I found myself thinking about support systems. Mine had been completely upended. The person I had expected to lean on most had vanished, replaced by people I hadn't anticipated. My brother, transforming from occasional dinner companion to fierce advocate. My oncologist, extending her care beyond the medical. Even Olivia, who had been sending daily text messages with funny memes, and offers to drop off whatever I needed. Maybe the universe wasn't just taking things away from me. Maybe it was also showing me what had been there all along. The next 2 days passed in a fog of treatment side effects. Alex worked remotely from the living room, close enough to hear if I needed anything but giving me space to rest. We hadn't discussed his confrontation with Nathan further, though I could tell from his frequent phone calls that things were moving behind the scenes. On the evening of the second day, as I picked at the vegetable soup Olivia had dropped off, Alex received a call that made him step into the backyard for privacy. Through the kitchen window, I could see him pacing along the deck, his expression intent. When he came back inside, his face bore a mixture of satisfaction and caution. Nathan's lawyer reached out, he said, sitting across from me at the table. They want to discuss terms. I set down my spoon. That's good? It means he's willing to negotiate rather than fight, Alex confirmed. But they're pushing for a quick resolution. They want to meet tomorrow. So soon? I think Nathan's running into some obstacles with the business launch. The investor he was counting on most heavily has been hesitant since our conversation. I frowned. What do you mean? Did you contact his investors? Alex had the grace to look slightly abashed. Not directly, but Charles Winthrop was my roommate at Stanford. When I heard he was the lead investor Nathan was courting, I called to catch up with an old friend. The conversation naturally turned to current projects. Alex, I groaned. What did you do? I simply mentioned I was helping my sister navigate a difficult divorce involving disputed intellectual property for a marketing analytics platform. No names, no direct interference. He shrugged. Charles is smart enough to connect the dots. That's why Nathan wants to settle quickly, I realized. His funding is in jeopardy. Exactly. And it gives us leverage to ensure you get what you deserve. I stirred my soup thoughtfully. What happens tomorrow? We meet with Nathan and his attorney to discuss a framework for divorce proceedings and the intellectual property settlement. I've asked Megan Chen from my firm's IP division to join us. Do I need to be there? The thought of sitting across from Nathan, maintaining composure while legal terms were discussed, seemed exhausting. Alex shook his head. Not for this. Initial meeting. We're establishing parameters, not finalizing anything. I'll bring all proposals back to you for review before any decisions are made. I nodded, relieved. What do you think they'll offer? Probably less than you deserve, Alex said frankly. But we'll counter. He studied me for a moment. What do you want out of this, Becca? Beyond fair compensation? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on surviving, the cancer, the betrayal, that I hadn't thought much about what winning might look like. I want recognition for my work, I said finally. I don't just mean money. I want my name on what I helped create. And I want. I paused, identifying the feeling that had been growing beneath the hurt. I want him to lose something he values. Is that petty? It's human, Alex replied, and justified, given the circumstances. I nodded, then continued more decisively. I want to keep the house. It's in my name anyway, and I picked this neighborhood because it's close to the hospital. I want a clean financial break that doesn't leave me vulnerable during treatment. And I want him to understand that what he did was wrong. Not just leaving, but how he left. and what he tried to take from me. Alex smiled slightly. That last one might be the tallest order. Men like Nathan rarely admit wrongdoing. Then, I want him to feel the consequences, I amended, even if he never acknowledges them. That, Alex said, I can definitely arrange. The following afternoon, while I was napping, Alex and his colleague met with Nathan and his lawyer at Alex's firm in downtown Lakeside. I woke to texts from Olivia asking how it was going, but I had no updates to share. The waiting created a strange tension. This meeting was about my life, my future, yet I wasn't present for it. I tried to distract myself by watching a cooking show, but my mind kept drifting to the conference room where my marriage was being dismantled into legal components. What was Nathan saying about me? Was he minimizing our relationship the way he had minimized my contributions to the app? Did he show any remorse at all? When I heard Alex's car in the driveway around 6 p.m., I was sitting on the couch pretending to read a novel. He walked in carrying his leather portfolio and a bakery box. I brought black and white cookies from Steinman's, he announced, setting the box on the coffee table. I remember they were your favorite when we were kids. The thoughtful gesture nearly undid me. How did it go? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex loosened his tie and sat beside me. Better than expected, actually. Nathan's lawyer is smarter than he is. She clearly advised him that fighting would cost more than settling. So what did they offer? Preliminary terms, Alex cautioned. Nothing's finalized, but the framework includes continued health insurance coverage through his plan for 3 years, or until you secure equivalent coverage, whichever comes first. A cash settlement reflecting both your marital assets and compensation for your contributions to Metropulse. And Nathan would retain primary ownership of the company, but you would be credited as co-founder with a 15% equity stake. I blinked, surprised. That's more reasonable than I expected. Like I said, his lawyer is good. She understands his legal exposure if this went to court. Alex opened his portfolio and pulled out some documents. There are details to negotiate: the cash amount, the exact structure of the equity arrangement, disposition of specific assets, but it's a starting point. What's the catch? I asked, suspicious of Nathan's apparent reasonableness. Alex hesitated. He wants the house. What? No? I shook my head firmly. That's non-negotiable. The house is mine. I made that clear, Alex assured me. But he's pushing on it, claims he put more into the renovations, that he has an emotional attachment to the place. I laughed bitterly. He left me here while I was sick. Any emotional attachment arguments died that day. I agree. And legally, your position is stronger since the mortgage is in your name. Alex laid the papers on the coffee table. We don't need to decide anything tonight. Review these when you feel up to it, and we'll discuss counter-proposals. I nodded, suddenly exhausted by the whole situation. Did he seem... I don't know. Did he ask about me at all? Alex's expression softened. He asked how your treatment was progressing. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're fighting with incredible strength, but that it's difficult. That the timing of his departure made everything harder. Alex paused. I don't think he expected me to answer honestly. I think he was asking out of obligation. I nodded, unsurprised but still disappointed. And Vanessa? Was she mentioned? Not directly, but the settlement includes a non-disclosure agreement about the circumstances of your separation. Nathan doesn't want the details public. Of course he doesn't, I said, a fresh wave of anger washing over me. He wants to control the narrative, to preserve his reputation. Alex studied me for a moment. Does it matter what story he tells? You know the truth. The people who care about you know the truth. It matters because lies shouldn't be comfortable, I said firmly. He shouldn't get to rewrite our history to make himself the hero of his own story. Then we don't agree to the NDA, Alex said simply. That's your choice. I considered this, feeling a small spark of power in having options, in making decisions rather than just reacting to Nathan's choices. I'll think about it, Alex nodded. There's one more thing. He reached back into his portfolio and withdrew a glossy brochure. Metropulse's current investor pitch deck. Megan managed to get a copy from Nathan's lawyer during discussion of the intellectual property claims. I took the brochure, flipping through it with growing disbelief. The product description, market analysis, even the visual design, all of it reflected work I had done, ideas I had developed over months of research and planning, and nowhere was my name mentioned. He really did steal everything, I said, throat tight with anger. Not everything, Alex corrected, pointing to a page I hadn't reached yet. Look at the technical architecture section. I turned to it, scanning the diagrams and text. This part was different, more sophisticated than what I remembered from our joint planning sessions. Nathan may have taken your marketing concept, Alex said, but he's built a genuinely advanced technical framework around it. The platform has real potential. So what you're saying is, my 15% could actually be valuable. Potentially very valuable, if they secure funding and execute well. Alex leaned back against the couch. Which means you have more leverage than Nathan realizes. He's not just compensating you for past contributions, he's buying your silence and cooperation for future success. A slow smile spread across my face, the first genuine one in weeks. Then let's make sure he pays appropriately for both. That night, for the first time since Nathan left, I slept without waking in a panic. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but at least there was a path, one that didn't end with me broken and depleted while Nathan walked away unscathed. The next morning, I called Dr. Linden and scheduled a telehealth appointment. Then I texted Olivia, asking her to come over that evening to help me review the settlement proposals. If I was going to fight for what I deserved, I needed my full support system engaged. As I made these calls, I noticed something different in my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My hair had started falling out in clumps from the chemotherapy, and dark circles underscored my eyes. But there was something new there, too. A firmness in my jaw, a clarity in my gaze that spoke of resilience rather than defeat. Nathan had left me during treatment, thinking I was at my weakest. But with Alex's help, I was discovering strengths I hadn't known I possessed. And together, we were going to make sure Nathan regretted his decision. Not just because it was cruel, but because it had been a profound miscalculation. He thought I would be too sick, too heartbroken, too overwhelmed to fight back. He was wrong. And soon, he would understand just how wrong he had been. This isn't enough, Olivia said, tapping her finger against the settlement offer spread across my kitchen table. Not even close. It was Friday evening, 3 days after the initial meeting between the lawyers. Olivia had arrived with her analytical mind fully engaged and a bottle of non-alcoholic sparkling cider to celebrate the beginning of Nathan's downfall, as she'd put it. The cash settlement seems reasonable, I countered, studying the figures. The proposed amount would cover my portion of medical expenses not covered by insurance for at least 2 years, with some left over for living expenses during my reduced work schedule. The money isn't the issue, Olivia replied, flipping to the section about Metropulse. It's this equity arrangement. 15% as a silent partner with no voting rights? That's insulting. Alex entered from the living room where he'd been on a call with his colleague Megan. I agree with Olivia, he said, placing his phone on the table. They're lowballing the value of your contribution. I frowned. But you said the technical architecture is all Nathan. The execution is, Alex acknowledged. But the core concept, the market positioning, the intended user base, that's all you, Becca. Without your marketing framework, Nathan would just have fancy code with no coherent business application. Olivia nodded vigorously. Exactly. And here's something else to consider. She pulled out her laptop and opened a folder. I did some digging at work. Nathan has been using Horizon's client data to build his prototype. Not just generic market research, actual proprietary client information. My stomach dropped. That's a major ethics violation, maybe even illegal. Definitely a violation of his employment contract, Olivia confirmed, and certainly actionable by Horizon if they found out. I stared at them both. What are you suggesting? That I blackmail him with this information? Not blackmail, Alex clarified quickly. Leverage. There's a difference. It feels like a fine line, I murmured, uncomfortable with how quickly the situation was escalating. Alex sat down across from me. Becca, I understand your hesitation, but consider what Nathan has done. He abandoned you during cancer treatment, attempted to steal your intellectual property, misused company resources, and is now trying to buy your silence with an inadequate settlement. He's not just your ex, Olivia added more gently. He's someone who calculated the most harmful possible time to leave you, then tried to profit from your vulnerability. I took a slow sip of the sparkling cider, considering their words. There was truth in what they said. Nathan's actions hadn't been impulsive or merely selfish. They had been calculated, timed for maximum advantage when I was at my weakest. So what do we counter with? I asked finally. Alex exchanged a glance with Olivia. I think we should push for 40% equity with voting rights on major company decisions, a board seat once the company is formally established, and public acknowledgement of your co-founder status in all investor and media materials. I hesitated. That's asking for a lot more than 15% silent equity. It's asking for what you deserve, Olivia said firmly. And practically speaking, Nathan needs to secure his next funding round quickly. Time is on our side. Not his. Alex nodded. We also push back firmly on the house. That's non-negotiable. I looked between them, these two people fighting so fiercely on my behalf. Their certainty gave me strength, but also made me wonder if I was being too soft, too willing to compromise. You think Nathan is hoping I'll be too sick or too tired to fight for the full value of what I created? I said slowly. That I'll take the easy settlement just to be done with it. That's exactly what he's counting on, Alex confirmed. That's why they're rushing the process. Every day you get stronger, physically and emotionally. Every day you're more capable of standing your ground. I ran my fingers along the edge of the settlement papers. Then let's make a counteroffer they won't expect. Over the next 2 hours, we crafted our response. Alex suggested legal language, Olivia provided business perspective, and I found my marketing voice returning as we outlined the value of my contributions to Metropulse. It felt rejuvenating to use my professional skills again after weeks of focusing solely on surviving treatment. When we finished, our counterproposal included 35% equity with proportional voting rights, official co-founder status in all company materials, a board seat once the company secured Series A funding, retention of the house, with Nathan, receiving a buyout for his portion, a more substantial cash settlement structured to ensure continued health coverage regardless of the company's success. What if he says no to all of this? I asked as Alex prepared to email our counter to Nathan's lawyer. Then we're prepared for the next step, he replied, not elaborating further. Which is what exactly? I pressed. Alex and Olivia exchanged another look, which was beginning to irritate me. We've been developing a parallel strategy, Olivia admitted. A sort of insurance policy in case negotiations fail. What kind of insurance policy? Alex closed his laptop. Remember Charles Winthrop, Nathan's potential investor, who also happens to be my old roommate?" I nodded, already sensing where this was heading. He was interested in hearing more about the original concept behind Metropulse, the marketing framework that made the technical solution valuable in the first place. "You've been talking to him about investing in a competing company," I realized, shocked. "Using my concept, but without Nathan's technical architecture. Not actively pursuing it," Alex clarified. "Just establishing that option exists. Charles understands the situation and agrees your contribution has substantial value. He's willing to explore alternatives if the settlement falls through." I wasn't sure how to feel about this revelation. On one hand, it was reassuring to have a backup plan. On the other, it represented an escalation I hadn't anticipated. "That feels aggressive," I said finally. "It's meant to be," Olivia replied unapologetically. "Nathan tried to steal your work while you were at your most vulnerable. Why should he profit exclusively from ideas you developed together?" I stood up, suddenly needing space. "I need to think about this, all of it." Alex nodded. "Of course. Nothing happens without your approval, Becca. We're just laying out options." I walked out onto the back deck, the cool evening air a relief against my skin, which always seemed too warm since starting chemo. The lake stretched before me, its surface rippling with the evening breeze, lights from houses on the opposite shore twinkling in the gathering dusk. Part of me wanted to simply let go, to accept whatever settlement Nathan offered and focus entirely on healing. The energy required to fight seemed overwhelming when combined with the energy needed to combat cancer. But another part, a part that had been growing stronger each day, refused to accept less than I deserved. That part recognized that healing wasn't just about my body. It was about reclaiming what had been taken from me, about refusing to be diminished by Nathan's betrayal. I heard the sliding door open behind me and turned to see Olivia stepping onto the deck, a shawl in her hands which she draped over my shoulders. "You'll catch a chill," she said, coming to stand beside me at the railing. We stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the distant lights. "I'm sorry if we're pushing too hard," she said finally. "I just can't stand seeing what he's trying to do to you." I nodded, understanding her protectiveness. "I appreciate you fighting for me, both of you. I just don't want to become something I'm not in the process." "What do you mean?" "Vindictive. Obsessed with revenge." I turned to face her. "I need to come out of this hole, not just financially, but emotionally. If I let bitterness consume me, Nathan wins in a different way." Olivia considered this. "There's a difference between justice and revenge, though. Between standing up for yourself and becoming consumed by anger." "Where's the line?" I asked honestly. "I think it's in the motivation," she replied after a thoughtful pause. "Are we doing this to punish Nathan or to ensure you're properly valued and protected? Are we trying to hurt him or prevent him from hurting you further?" It was a distinction I needed to consider carefully. "Let's send the counteroffer," I decided. "But I'm not ready to commit to the competing business idea. That feels like it crosses the line from protection to retaliation." Olivia nodded. "Fair enough, one step at a time." When we returned inside, Alex was on the phone again, his expression tense. He held up a finger asking us to wait, then continued his conversation in a low voice. "I understand," he was saying, "but the circumstances make that timeline extremely challenging. Yes, I'll discuss it with her." He ended the call with a frown. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nathan's lawyer. They received our counter and want to meet Monday morning. Apparently, there's a potential investor meeting Tuesday that Nathan needs to have the ownership situation clarified for." "That's rushing things," Olivia observed. "Exactly. They're trying to create artificial time pressure." Alex set his phone down. "But there's something else. Megan just texted me. She's heard a rumor that Nathan and Vanessa have a backup plan if their funding falls through. They're considering approaching Horizon directly about developing the platform in-house, with them leading the project. My jaw dropped. They'd take my idea and try to implement it at my own company while I'm on medical leave? That's beyond unethical. It's just a rumor, Alex cautioned. But it aligns with their pattern of behavior. I sank into a chair, anger giving way to a bone-deep weariness. Every new revelation about Nathan seemed to unveil a person I'd never truly known. Had he always been this calculating, this willing, to exploit any advantage regardless of who got hurt? Had I been blind to his true nature? Or had my illness simply revealed aspects of his character that had been dormant before? I need to lie down, I said, the evening's discussion suddenly overwhelming. The treatment side effects combined with emotional exhaustion were a potent combination. Go rest, Alex urged. We'll clean up here. I made my way upstairs, my head spinning with competing thoughts. By the time I reached my bedroom, a decision had crystallized. I pulled out my phone and texted Alex. Send the counteroffer and set up a meeting with Charles Winthrop. I want to hear more about the alternative business option. His reply came almost immediately. Are you sure? I wasn't, not entirely. But I was becoming increasingly certain that meekness would be interpreted as weakness, that compromise would be seen as capitulation. Yes, I replied. It's time to show Nathan exactly who he's dealing with. The weekend passed in a blur of treatment side effects. The cumulative impact of the chemotherapy was making each cycle harder than the last. I spent most of Saturday in bed, Alex bringing tea and toast that I could barely stomach. Olivia came by Sunday with fresh flowers and sat with me while Alex ran errands, reading aloud from a thriller novel when I felt too nauseous to focus my eyes on the pages. By Sunday evening, I felt marginally better, enough to shower and join Alex in the living room where he was preparing for the Monday meeting with Nathan's lawyer. You don't have to go tomorrow, he said, looking up from his notes. I can handle it with Megan. I want to be there, I insisted, settling onto the couch with a blanket. I need Nathan to see that I'm not hiding, that I'm not too weak to face him. Alex studied me for a moment. Are you sure? These meetings can be draining even when you're at full strength. I'm sure. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. Dr. Wong said that feeling in control of aspects of my life can actually help with treatment outcomes. This is something I can control. He nodded, accepting my decision. We meet at 10 a.m. at Megan's office downtown. Nathan will be there with his lawyer. And Charles? Has he agreed to meet? Tuesday afternoon. He's flying in from San Francisco, specifically for this. I raised an eyebrow. He's very interested in a concept he hasn't even seen fully developed. Charles has always had good instincts about emerging tech, Alex replied, and he trusts my judgment. We've backed each other on various ventures over the years. This feels like it's moving very fast, I observed. That's the tech world, Alex said with a slight smile. Opportunities appear and disappear quickly. Timing is everything. I thought about timing, how Nathan had timed his departure to coincide with my greatest vulnerability, how he had timed the company launch to occur while I was distracted by treatment. Perhaps it was appropriate that timing would now work against him. What should I expect tomorrow? I asked, turning my thoughts to the immediate challenge. They'll counter our counteroffer, Alex explained. Probably split the difference. On equity. Maybe 25% instead of 15% or our 35%. They'll push back hard on the voting rights and board seat. The House will remain a sticking point. And what's our strategy? Honestly, having you there changes the dynamic. Nathan has been dealing with me as your proxy, which allows him emotional distance. Seeing you, being reminded of exactly what he's done and to whom, might impact the negotiation in ways we can't predict. I considered this. You think my Presence will make him uncomfortable. I think it will make it harder for him to view this as just another business transaction, Alex clarified. Which it isn't. We spent the next hour reviewing the details of our position. Despite my determination to attend, I found my attention flagging as fatigue set in. Eventually, Alex noticed my drooping eyelids and suggested I get some rest before the big day. That night, I dreamed of conferences rooms and legal documents, of Nathan's face across a polished table, of Vanessa standing in the shadows behind him. I woke at dawn feeling unrested but resolute. Alex helped me select an outfit, professional but comfortable, a loose-fitting blazer over a soft blouse that wouldn't irritate my sensitive skin, flat shoes for stability. I covered my thinning hair with a stylish scarf that Olivia had brought, applied minimal makeup to avoid highlighting my pallor, and studied myself in the mirror. I looked like a woman fighting two battles simultaneously, against cancer and against betrayal. But I was still standing, still fighting. That counted. For something. The drive downtown was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts. Megan met us in the lobby of her law firm's building, a petite woman with a razor-sharp bob and eyes that missed nothing. She assessed me with a quick glance, then nodded approvingly. "Glad you're joining us, Rebecca," she said, leading us to the elevator. "Your presence changes the conversation." That's what Alex said. I smiled weakly. I just hope I don't pass out in the middle of negotiations. That would definitely change the conversation, but not in a helpful way. And Megan laughed. "We have comfortable chairs and plenty of water. Just signal if you need a break." The conference room was predictably elegant, all mahogany and leather with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. Nathan and his lawyer were already seated when we arrived. I watched Nathan's expression shift from professional neutrality to surprise to something like discomfort as I walked in. Good. Let him be uncomfortable. His lawyer, a poised woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair, stood to greet us. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Diana Levinson. Thank you for joining us today." I shook her offered hand. "Ms. Levinson." I didn't acknowledge Nathan directly, though I felt his eyes on me as I took my seat beside Alex. He looked well, tanned, rested, wearing a new shirt I didn't recognize. The contrast between his appearance and mine, I knew I looked tired, thinner, my complexion dulled by treatment, was not lost on me. "Before we begin," Megan said as we settled, "I want to clarify that Ms. Mitchell's presence today doesn't change our position on expedition. We understand Mr. Mitchell has upcoming investor meetings, but we won't be rushed into inadequate terms due to his timetable." Diana nodded. "Understood. We've reviewed your counterproposal and have prepared a response that we believe addresses your primary concerns while maintaining the framework we initially proposed." She slid folders across the table. Alex opened his immediately, but I let mine sit untouched, keeping my eyes on Nathan instead. He was deliberately focusing on the papers before him, refusing to meet my gaze. "As you'll see," Diana continued, "we've increased the equity offer to 22%, maintained the silent partner structure but added consultation rights on major business decisions and included a formal acknowledgement of Ms. Mitchell's foundational contributions in company materials. The house remains non-negotiable," I said, finally opening my folder. "It stays with me." Nathan looked up then, his jaw tight. "The house was our joint project. I put hundreds of hours into those renovations. And I'm putting hours into chemotherapy because you left in the middle of my treatment," I replied evenly. "We all make choices about how to spend our time, Nathan." A flush crept up his neck. Diana placed a warning hand on his arm. "The cash settlement has been increased to reflect Mr. Mitchell's interest in the property," she said smoothly. "We believe it's a fair compromise." "It's not about money," Nathan insisted, ignoring his lawyer's cautioning glance. "That house meant something to me." "Evidently not enough to stay in it," I observed, surprised by my own composure. Not enough to honor the promises you made within its walls. The room fell silent. Even the lawyers seemed unsure how to navigate this moment of raw emotion breaching the professional veneer. Alex cleared his throat. Let's focus on the equity arrangement. 22% remains inadequate given the extent of Becca's contributions. The consultation rights are a step in the right direction, but without voting power, they're essentially meaningless. Diana began to respond, outlining their reasoning for the limited equity structure. But I found my attention drifting. A wave of fatigue was washing over me, the effort of maintaining my professional facade draining my limited energy reserves. Nathan was watching me now, his expression unreadable. Did he notice the tremor in my hands? Could he see how much effort each minute of this meeting was costing me? Ms. Mitchell's health considerations, of course, Diana was saying when I tuned back in. I'm sorry, what about my health? I asked, refocusing. I was explaining that the accelerated timeline is partially in consideration of your situation, Diana clarified. A protracted legal battle during your treatment would be difficult for everyone, but especially for you. The implication was clear. They were counting on my illness to pressure me into accepting less than I deserved. The realization sent a surge of anger through me, momentarily banishing my fatigue. My health is not a negotiating point, I said firmly. And using it as leverage is transparently manipulative. Nathan had the grace to look away, but Diana maintained her professional demeanor. That wasn't my intention, Ms. Mitchell. I apologize if it seemed that way. Megan jumped in, redirecting the conversation to specific terms of the equity arrangement. As they debated percentages and rights, I found myself studying Nathan more closely. There was something different about him beyond the new clothes and rested appearance. A nervousness in his posture, a tightness around his eyes suggesting stress, beneath the composed exterior. He wasn't as confident as he was trying to appear. Something was pressuring him beyond the upcoming investor meeting. When a brief break was called an hour into negotiations, I slipped into the hallway to take some medication and gather my strength. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I could see Nathan in intense conversation with his lawyer, his gestures more agitated than they had been in our presence. Alex found me by the water cooler. How are you holding up? I'm okay, I assured him. Actually, seeing Nathan unsettled is surprisingly energizing. He smiled slightly. You noticed that too? Diana keeps having to rein him in. He's not following their strategy. Something's off, I agreed. He's too anxious for someone who should have the upper hand. Alex checked his phone. I just got a text from Olivia. She wants to meet us for lunch after this. Says she has information that might impact our position. What kind of information? She didn't say, just that it's time sensitive. We returned to the conference room for another hour of detailed negotiation. By noon, we had made incremental progress. The equity offer had increased to 25% with limited voting rights on specific categories of decisions, but we remained at an impasse over the House and the board seat. I think we've gone as far as we can today, Diana finally said, gathering her papers. We need to consult with our client and reevaluate our position. We're available to continue discussions this afternoon, Megan offered, clearly recognizing their time pressure. Diana glanced at Nathan, who nodded tightly. 3 o'clock then. Same location. As they prepared to leave, I finally addressed Nathan directly. You haven't asked how I'm doing. He paused, his briefcase half closed. I assumed Alex has been keeping me updated. He hasn't, I said, and you haven't asked. Nathan shifted uncomfortably. How are you feeling, Becca? Like someone ripped my heart out while poison was being pumped into my veins, I replied quietly. But I'm still here, still fighting, on all fronts. His face paled slightly. Without another word, he closed his briefcase and followed Diana from the room. Alex squeezed my shoulder as they departed. That was quite an exit line. Not exactly professional negotiation tactics, I admitted. But effective, Megan observed with grudging admiration. You reminded him that this isn't just business. It's personal. We gathered our materials and headed downstairs to meet Olivia at a nearby cafe. She was already waiting in a corner booth, a folder beside her water glass, and an expression that combined excitement with apprehension. "What's going on?" Alex asked as we slid into the booth. "Your text sounded urgent." Olivia glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. "I just came from an emergency department meeting at Horizon. There are layoffs coming next week." My stomach dropped. Am I on the list? I was on medical leave, but companies sometimes used restructuring to eliminate positions held by employees with health issues. "No, your position is safe," she assured me quickly. "But Nathan's isn't, and neither is Vanessa's." Alex leaned forward. "They're both being let go? Their entire department is being restructured after a client complaint about data misuse." Olivia slid the folder toward us. A complaint that specifically mentioned inappropriate sharing of proprietary analytics methodologies. I opened the folder to find internal Horizon emails discussing an investigation into data security breaches within the analytics division, the division Nathan headed and where Vanessa worked. "This isn't public yet," Olivia continued. "The official announcement comes Friday, but Nathan will be called in tomorrow morning and given notice." Right before his investor meeting, I realized. He'll be unemployed when he sits down with potential funders. Alex's expression darkened, and he knows this is coming. That's why he's so anxious to close our settlement before the meeting. He needs to secure your silence about the data misuse. "The non-disclosure agreement," I said, the pieces clicking into place. "It wasn't just about our marriage. It was about preventing me from discussing how he developed Metropulse using Horizon's proprietary data." Olivia nodded. "Exactly. If investors knew the platform was built using potentially misappropriated data, they'd back out immediately. The legal exposure would be enormous." I sat back, processing this new information. So Nathan isn't just losing his job. He's potentially facing legal action from Horizon. Unless he can convince them that Metropulse was developed entirely, independently, using only publicly available information, Alex added. "Which would be much easier if you signed an agreement saying you wouldn't discuss its origins." The three of us exchanged looks, the significance of this new leverage point clear to all. "What do we do with this information?" I asked finally. Alex checked his watch. "We have 3 hours before our next meeting with Nathan and Diana. I think it's time to completely reconsider our approach." As we huddled over lunch, revising our strategy in light of this new information, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Vindication that Nathan's deceptions were catching up to him, concern about the potential broader implications, and something else I couldn't immediately identify. It took me until dessert to recognize it: empowerment. For the first time since my diagnosis, since Nathan's abandonment, I felt fully in control of my own narrative. Whatever happened next would be on my terms, not his. And as we prepared to return to negotiations, I knew with absolute certainty that Nathan would soon regret underestimating me, not because I sought revenge, but because I refused to be diminished by his betrayal. That refusal, more than anything else, was about to change everything. The afternoon sun streamed through the conference room windows, casting long shadows across the polished table. I sat straighter in my chair, energy renewed by both the information Olivia had shared and the protein smoothie Alex had insisted I drink before returning to negotiations. Across from me, Nathan and Diana entered the room, their expressions guarded. Diana placed her briefcase on the table with deliberate care. "We've considered your position further," she began. And Mr. Mitchell is prepared to increase the equity offer to 28% with the expanded consultation rights we discussed this morning. I exchanged a glance with Alex, our newly revised strategy, clear between us. Megan opened her portfolio with practiced nonchalance. That's a step in the right direction, she acknowledged. However, recent developments have significantly altered our position. Nathan's head snapped up. What developments? Alex slid a single sheet of paper across the table. We've become aware of an ongoing investigation at Horizon Media regarding data security breaches in the analytics division. The color drained from Nathan's face as he scanned the document, a carefully redacted version of the internal memo Olivia had provided with just enough information to confirm our knowledge without revealing our source. This is confidential company information, Nathan said, his voice tight. How did you obtain this? The specific source isn't relevant, Alex replied calmly. What matters is that we now understand the full context of your urgency to settle before tomorrow's investor meeting. Diana leaned over to read the document, her professional composure momentarily slipping as she absorbed its implications. I'll need a moment to confer with my client, she said, rising and gesturing for Nathan to follow her into the hallway. Through the glass wall, we could see their intense conversation, Diana speaking rapidly, Nathan running a hand through his hair in agitation, gesturing sharply in response to whatever advice she was offering. They're recalculating their entire position, Megan observed quietly. Nathan looks rattled, I added, watching his increasingly desperate body language. He should be, Alex said. His entire pitch to investors is compromised if there's any question about the data used to develop the platform. When Nathan and Diana returned, the dynamic in the room had shifted palpably. Nathan's earlier confidence had evaporated entirely, replaced by a tightly controlled anxiety that manifested in the rapid tapping of his fingers against his thigh. We're prepared to discuss a more comprehensive settlement, Diana began, her tone measured. Given the complex circumstances surrounding Metropulse's development. We're listening, Megan replied. Over the next hour, the terms were completely restructured. My equity increased to 33%, with full voting rights proportional to my ownership stake. I would be formally acknowledged as co-founder in all company materials. The board seat was secured once the company reached a specified funding threshold. The house remained unequivocally mine, with a fair cash payment to Nathan for his contributions to renovations. Most significantly, the non-disclosure agreement was dramatically narrowed, covering only personal details of our separation, not the business development of Metropulse. As Diana outlined these new terms, I watched Nathan's expression cycle between resignation and resentment. He hadn't spoken directly since returning to the room, leaving the negotiation entirely to his attorney. His silence spoke volumes about how cornered he felt. When Diana finished, Alex and Megan conferred quietly beside me, reviewing the proposed changes. I kept my eyes on Nathan, who finally met my gaze directly for the first time all day. Why didn't you just say something? He asked suddenly, his voice low enough that only I could hear while our attorneys were distracted. About what? I replied, equally quiet. About the app. If you felt it was so much your idea, why didn't you fight for it before all of this? The audacity of his question momentarily stunned me. Before all of what, Nathan? Before you walked out during my second chemo session? Before you started moving our assets around 3 days after my diagnosis? Before you filed incorporation papers without my name? Each question landed like a small dart. When exactly was I supposed to have that conversation? He looked away. I didn't plan it like this. Yes, I said firmly. You did. The timing was calculated. The documents show that clearly. I leaned forward slightly. You saw my illness as an opportunity, not a crisis. An opportunity to take what you wanted. Freedom. A new relationship. My business concept. while I was too vulnerable to fight back. That's not... It is, I cut him off. And the worst part is, you nearly succeeded. If Alex hadn't stepped in, if Olivia hadn't been watching out for me, you would have gotten away with all of it. His jaw tightened. I'm not the villain you're making me out to be. No? What would you call someone who abandons their spouse during cancer treatment, then tries to profit from their ideas while they're fighting for their life? He had no answer for that. Our attorneys finished their discussion and turned back to us. If they noticed the tension between Nathan and me, they gave no indication. These terms are much closer to what we consider fair, Megan said. We have a few minor adjustments to the language regarding the voting rights and board representation, but the framework is acceptable. Diana nodded. We can work through those details this afternoon. I believe we're close to a final agreement. Nathan said nothing, simply nodding his assent, defeated. The remainder of the meeting focused on technical language and implementation. Details. By 5 o'clock, we had a settlement agreement in principle, with final documents to be prepared overnight and signed the following morning, just hours before Nathan's now precarious investor meeting. As we gathered our materials to leave, Nathan approached me while the attorneys were conferring about document logistics. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I am sorry about how things ended between us. I studied his face, looking for genuine remorse, but finding only the regret of someone whose plans had gone awry. Are you sorry for what you did? Or sorry that it didn't work out the way you intended? He didn't answer directly. I never wanted to hurt you, Becca. But you were willing to if it got you what you wanted, I replied. That's the part I'm still trying to understand. How the person I built a life with for 8 years could calculate the precise moment of maximum vulnerability to inflict maximum damage. It wasn't like that, he insisted, but his eyes betrayed him. It was exactly like that, I said. And now you'll have to live with the consequences of that choice. I turned away, suddenly exhausted from the emotional and physical exertion of the day. Alex was instantly at my side, supporting my elbow as we walked toward the elevator. You okay? He asked softly. Just tired, I assured him. But it was worth it. In the car heading home, I leaned my head against the window, replaying the day's events. Do you think Nathan will secure his funding tomorrow, even with the restructured agreement? Alex shrugged. Hard to say. If he's smart, he'll be transparent with Charles about your co-founder status. The new arrangement actually makes the company more valuable in some ways. Your marketing expertise combined with his technical skills is a stronger foundation than either alone. But if Horizon pursues legal action over the data misuse, that's a bigger problem, Alex acknowledged, one that goes beyond our settlement, but not our concern anymore. I considered this. Our agreement protected my interests regardless of whether Metropulse succeeded or failed. If Nathan managed to navigate the challenges ahead and build a successful company, I would benefit appropriately. If everything collapsed due to his ethical shortcuts, I was still protected financially through the cash settlement and the house. When we arrived home, I was surprised to find Olivia waiting on the porch swing, a large gift basket beside her. Congratulations, she called as we approached. Megan texted me the outline of the settlement. You did it, Becca. We did it, I corrected, hugging her carefully to avoid pressure on my port. Your information about the Horizon investigation changed everything. She held up the basket. I brought celebratory provisions, non-alcoholic cider, fancy crackers that won't upset your stomach, and the mildest cheese known to humanity. Inside, as Olivia arranged our modest feast on the kitchen island, Alex filled her in on the details of the negotiation. I sat listening, a peculiar sense of anticlimax settling over me. We had achieved everything we'd set out to accomplish, a fair settlement, recognition of my contributions, security for my future. Yet the victory felt hollow in some indefinable way. Earth to Becca. Olivia waved her hand in front of my face. You disappeared on us. What are you thinking about? I accepted the glass of cider she offered. I'm trying to figure out why. I don't feel more triumphant, I guess. We won. Nathan lost. Isn't that what we wanted? Alex and Olivia exchanged glances. It's not about winning or losing, Alex said gently. It's about justice, about making things right. And maybe, Olivia added, it's hard to feel triumphant when the circumstances are so painful to begin with. This isn't a victory you wanted to have to fight for. She was right. In an ideal world, Nathan would have honored his vows, supported me through treatment, and we would have developed Metropulse together as equal partners. The settlement was simply restoring what should have been mine all along. It wasn't a prize or a trophy. Plus, Alex pointed out, you're exhausted, both from treatment and from today's marathon negotiation. Triumph requires energy. I smiled weakly. Fair point. We ate our modest celebration dinner, the conversation gradually shifting from the settlement to lighter topics. By 8 o'clock, I was struggling to keep my eyes open. Alex noticed first, insisting I get some rest while he walked Olivia out. Big day tomorrow, he reminded me. Document signing in the morning, Charles in the afternoon. I nodded, too tired to argue. As I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, I heard their muted voices on the porch. A serious conversation from the sounds of it, though I couldn't make out the words. Sleep came quickly and deeply, my body demanding recovery after the day's exertions. I dreamed of conference rooms and legal documents, of Nathan's face across the table, of words like equity and intellectual property swirling in abstract patterns. But beneath these stress dreams ran a current of something steadier, a sense of solid ground beneath my feet after months of quicksand. Morning arrived with a text from Megan. The final documents were ready for signing at 9 a.m. I dressed carefully again, another professional outfit, another stylish scarf covering my thinning hair. Alex made protein-packed smoothies for both of us, insisting I needed strength for another potentially stressful interaction. The signing meeting was being held in a different conference room, smaller and less imposing than yesterday's space. When we arrived, Diana was already there, arranging document folders with meticulous precision. Nathan had not yet appeared. Good morning, Diana greeted us. The final documents reflect all the terms we discussed yesterday, with the minor language adjustments your counsel requested. Megan immediately began reviewing the thick stack of papers, checking against her notes from the previous day. I sat quietly, conserving my energy, watching the clock as the minutes ticked past 9. At 9:15, Diana checked her phone with a frown. Mr. Mitchell should be here shortly. He confirmed he was on his way. At 9:30, she excused herself to make a call. Through the glass wall, I could see her expression shift from professional patience to concern as she spoke. When she returned, her composure remained intact, but a new tension radiated from her. I apologize for the delay, she said smoothly. Mr. Mitchell has been unavoidably detained. He's requested we proceed without him if possible, as he's authorized me to execute the agreement on his behalf. Alex and Megan exchanged glances. May I ask the nature of the delay? Megan inquired carefully. Diana hesitated. I believe it's a work-related matter. He didn't provide specifics. The implication was clear. Nathan had been called into Horizon for his termination meeting earlier than Olivia had anticipated. We're comfortable proceeding without Mr. Mitchell present, Alex confirmed after a quick consultation with me. As long as all the documents are as agreed. Megan completed her review, confirming every detail matched our negotiations. The signing process itself was anticlimactic. Initials on multiple pages, full signatures on designated lines, notary stamps where required. Diana signed on Nathan's behalf where appropriate, her expression revealing nothing about her client's situation. By 10:15, it was done. I was officially co-founder of Metropulse with 33% equity and proportional voting rights. The house was secured in my name alone. The financial settlement would be transferred within 3 business days. "Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell," Diana said as we gathered our copies of the documents. "I wish you all the best with your treatment and recovery." There was something in her tone, a genuine warmth beneath the professional courtesy, that suggested she understood more about the situation than she had let on. Perhaps she too had recognized the calculated nature of Nathan's actions and found them distasteful, despite her obligation to represent him effectively. "Thank you," I replied simply. As we left the building, Alex's phone chimed with a text. He checked it, then showed me the screen. A message from Olivia. "N and V both escorted out this morning. Security involved. Rumors of legal action to follow." "Sounds like it wasn't just a standard layoff," I observed as we walked to the car. "Not surprising given the data misuse allegations," Alex replied. "If security was involved, Horizon may have evidence of more serious violations than we realized." I felt a twinge of something, not quite sympathy for Nathan, but a complexity of emotion that defied simple categorization. He had betrayed me in multiple ways, attempted to steal my work, abandoned me at my most vulnerable. Yet seeing his professional life implode alongside his personal one generated no satisfaction, only a weary recognition of consequences rightfully earned. After a quick lunch, we headed to Charles Winthrop's hotel for our afternoon meeting. Charles was nothing like I had imagined from Alex's descriptions. I had pictured a stereotypical tech investor, perhaps in expensive casual wear with an air of artificial youth. Instead, he was a distinguished man in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the thoughtful manner of someone who considered his words carefully before speaking. "Rebecca," he greeted me warmly, taking my hand between both of his. "I've heard so much about you from Alex. I'm truly sorry about your health challenges." "Thank you," I replied, finding his genuine concern refreshing after weeks of navigating Nathan's calculated manipulations. We settled in the hotel's private lounge area, where Charles had arranged for tea and light refreshments. "I understand. Congratulations are in order," he began once we were comfortable. "Alex mentioned you reached a settlement this morning." I nodded. "Yes, I'm now officially co-founder of Metropulse with 33% equity." Charles raised an eyebrow. "Impressive. When we spoke last week, Alex was hoping for 25% at most." "Circumstances shifted in our favor," Alex explained vaguely. Charles studied us both, his expression knowing. "I imagine they did, particularly given what I heard this morning about Nathan Mitchell and Vanessa Carter's departure from Horizon Media." I glanced at Alex, surprised. News travels fast. "The tech community is smaller than most people realize," Charles replied, "especially when it comes to potential ethical violations. Word of security escorting executives out tends to generate attention." "Has Nathan contacted you about your scheduled meeting?" Alex asked directly. Charles nodded. "He called an hour. Ego to cancel, citing unexpected transitions at Horizon. He was rather vague about the circumstances." "And are you still interested in Metropulse as an investment opportunity?" I asked. Charles considered the question carefully. "The concept remains compelling. The execution, however, is now significantly more complicated given potential issues with the development process." He turned to me. "Alex tells me the original marketing framework was primarily your creation." "That's correct," I confirmed. "The analytics methodology and visualization approach were concepts I developed based on my work at Horizon, using publicly available data and general industry knowledge, not proprietary information," I clarified. "And Nathan contributed the technical architecture?" I nodded. "He built the actual platform based on my conceptual framework. It's genuinely impressive work. I won't pretend otherwise just because he betrayed me personally." Charles seemed to appreciate my honesty. That creates an interesting situation. The concept is sound, the technical implementation potentially compromised. And now, your partner's in a venture where trust has been irrevocably broken. Not ideal circumstances for a successful business relationship, Alex acknowledged. No, Charles agreed. Which brings me to a proposal I'd like you to consider, Rebecca. He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a slim folder. I've been looking to diversify my investment portfolio into marketing analytics for some time. Metropulse initially caught my attention because it addressed specific pain points I've observed across multiple industries. He opened the folder, revealing a business concept outline. What if we were to develop a new platform based on your marketing methodology, but with a completely fresh technical implementation? No connection to Nathan's potentially compromised code. I stared at him, processing the implication. You want to create a competing product? I want to create a clean product, he corrected. One without ethical or legal complications. One that properly recognizes your contributions from the beginning. He slid the folder toward me. This is merely a concept outline. If you're interested, we would develop a formal business plan together. I glanced at Alex, who looked as surprised as I felt. But I just signed an agreement making me co-founder of Metropulse. Wouldn't creating a competing product violate that? I've reviewed the settlement documents, Alex said slowly. There's no non-compete clause prohibiting you from developing other analytics platforms. Nathan was so focused on securing your silence about the data misuse that he overlooked that potential vulnerability. Charles nodded. I suspected as much. Most settlements of this nature include non-compete provisions, but given the unusual circumstances. I leafed through the concept outline, noting how Charles had already expanded on several aspects of my original marketing methodology. This would feel like, I don't know, revenge? Using a legal loophole to undermine Nathan after just reaching a settlement? Business isn't personal, Charles said simply. Though in this case, I understand why it feels that way. Consider it from another perspective. Nathan attempted to profit from your ideas without proper acknowledgement or compensation. The settlement rectifies that for Metropulse specifically, but what about your future contributions to the field? I hadn't considered this angle. The settlement secured my interest in one specific implementation of my ideas, but did nothing to establish my independence as a thought leader in marketing analytics going forward. You don't need to decide immediately, Charles assured me. Take time to review the concept, discuss it with Alex, consider how it aligns with your treatment schedule and recovery plans. My investment interest isn't going anywhere. As we drove home from the meeting, my mind swirled with possibilities I hadn't dared consider just days ago. The house was quiet when we arrived, a different kind of quiet than the emptiness that had followed Nathan's departure. This silence felt peaceful rather than abandoned, as if the space had finally settled into its new configuration, a home for healing, for rebuilding, for whatever came next. I settled onto the porch swing with my tablet, reviewing Charles's concept outline more carefully. Alex brought me tea, then retreated inside to handle some work emails, giving me space to think. My phone chimed with a message from an unfamiliar number. When I opened it, my breath caught. It's Nathan. Can we talk? Not about the settlement. About what happened today at Horizon. I stared at the message, conflicted. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to maintain the clean break the legal settlement represented. But another part was curious about what he might say now that his carefully constructed plans had fallen apart completely. After a long moment, I typed a reply. Why should I talk to you after everything that's happened? His response came quickly. Because you deserve to hear the truth directly from me, not filtered through lawyers or rumors. I considered this. What truth? That I made terrible choices, that I've lost everything that matters, that I'm sorry. The apology, coming now after his professional disgrace rather than before, struck me as convenient at best, manipulative at worst. Still, there was a finality to this conversation that appealed to me, a chance to close this chapter completely. Before moving forward, I'll give you 15 minutes. Tomorrow at Green Lake Coffee, 3 p.m. Public place, brief conversation. Thank you. I'll be there. I set the phone down, uncertain if I'd made the right decision. But something told me this final conversation was necessary, not for Nathan's sake, but for my own. To look him in the eye one last time, not from across a negotiating table surrounded by lawyers, but simply as the person who had once been his wife, now moving in a different direction. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived the following afternoon. I'd selected it deliberately, a place we'd never frequented as a couple, neutral territory with plenty of witnesses. Alex had insisted on driving me but agreed to wait in the car, giving me the privacy to handle this conversation alone while remaining nearby if needed. Nathan was already there, seated at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. He looked different, diminished somehow, the confident executive posture replaced by a slumped tension that aged him visibly. He stood when he saw me approach. "I got you ginger tea," he said, gesturing to one of the cups. I remembered it helps with the nausea. I sat without acknowledging the gesture. "You have 15 minutes, Nathan." He nodded, sinking back into his chair. "I know." He stared at his coffee for a moment before meeting my eyes. Horizon is pressing charges: corporate espionage, data theft, breach of fiduciary duty. I waited, unsurprised by this development, given what Olivia had shared. They found evidence that Vanessa and I accessed client data we weren't authorized to use, he continued. Proprietary analytics that we incorporated into Metropulse's engine. You stole from them, I clarified. He flinched but didn't deny it. Yes, just like you stole from me. That's what I wanted to tell you, he said, his voice lowering. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. We were supposed to develop Metropulse together, as equal partners. But then I got cancer, I finished for him. And I became inconvenient. He shook his head. Not inconvenient, complicated. The timeline would have been delayed indefinitely. The investors I'd been courting were already showing interest. Vanessa was pushing to move forward immediately. So you made a choice, I said coolly. You chose your ambition over your wife, your new relationship over your marriage vows, your timeline over my life. He didn't deny any of it. I convinced myself it was the rational decision, that it was better to make a clean break than to pretend I could be the husband you needed, through treatment. He looked down at his hands. I told myself I was being honest rather than cruel. You weren't honest, Nathan. You were calculating. You saw an opportunity and took it, regardless of who got hurt. He was quiet for a moment. You're right, he finally admitted. And now I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, probably my freedom if the charges move forward. The investors have all backed out. Metropulse is dead before it launched. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a weary acknowledgement of consequences earned. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know that it wasn't worth it, he said simply. None of it was worth what I lost. And what exactly did you lose, Nathan? I asked, genuinely curious about his perception. You, he replied, his voice catching slightly. Us, the life we built, the future we planned. He gestured vaguely. Everything that actually mattered. I studied him, looking for manipulation, but finding what appeared to be genuine regret. Not that it changed anything. I wish I could believe that was true, I said finally. But the man who truly valued those things would never have left in the first place. He wouldn't have abandoned his wife during cancer treatment. He wouldn't have tried to steal her work. He wouldn't have waited until everything collapsed around him to recognize what he'd thrown away. Nathan didn't argue. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Becca, or reconciliation. Those doors are closed, and I closed them. Then what do you want from this conversation? For you to know that whatever success you find next, with your treatment, with your career, with whatever you choose to build, it won't be because I underestimated you. He met my eyes directly. It will be because you were always stronger and smarter than I gave you credit for, because Alex saw what I was too selfish to see. I hadn't expected this acknowledgement. It didn't heal the wounds he'd inflicted, but it did provide a certain clarity. Confirmation that my value had never been dependent on his recognition of it. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. I hope you find a way through this, Nathan. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to bitterness would require energy I need for healing. He nodded, accepting this not quite forgiveness for what it was, a release, not a reconciliation. Your 15 minutes are up, I said, standing. Goodbye, Nathan. He remained seated as I walked away, not calling after me or trying to extend the conversation. Perhaps he too recognized the finality of this moment, the official end of a chapter in both our lives. Outside, Alex was waiting in the car as promised. How did it go? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. It went exactly as it needed to, I replied. It's over. 6 months later, I stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Lakeside Convention Center, looking out over an audience of marketing professionals gathered for the Regional Technology Conference. My hair had started growing back, short, but thick, a visible sign of my body's gradual recovery. When we talk about authentic marketing analytics, I continued my presentation, we're talking about integrity in both methodology and implementation, about building platforms that respect proprietary boundaries while delivering genuine insights. On the screen behind me, the logo for PulseTrue, my new analytics platform developed in partnership with Charles Winthrop, displayed alongside case study results from our beta testers. In the front row, Alex and Olivia watched proudly as I outlined the innovation pathways that separated our approach from existing solutions. PulseTrue didn't emerge in a vacuum, I acknowledged toward the end of my talk. It was born from adversity, from challenges both personal and professional that taught me the value of resilience and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who believe in your vision even when you're at your weakest. I glanced at Alex, who offered an encouraging nod. Sometimes the hardest moments in our lives reveal pathways we might never have discovered otherwise, I concluded. When my husband left me during cancer treatment, I thought my life was falling apart. In reality, it was falling into place, clearing the way for authentic relationships, meaningful work, and the discovery of strengths I didn't know I possessed. The applause as I finished was gratifying, but not as meaningful as the private celebration that followed that evening at my lakeside home. A small gathering of the people who had stood by me through the darkest period of my life. Alex, Olivia, Dr. Wong, a few fellow cancer survivors from my support group, and Charles, who had become both mentor and friend as we built PulseTrue together. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I caught Alex's eye across the room. To the future, I said. To the future, everyone echoed. But Alex added quietly, just for me to hear, and to the brother who made him regret it. I smiled, clinking my glass against his. No, to the brother who helped me find my strength when I needed it most. That's what Nathan truly regrets, not recognizing what was right in front of him all along. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the water in shades of gold and rose. Through the window, I could see the life I was rebuilding, radiant, with possibilities that had seemed impossible in those dark days after Nathan's departure. He had left me during treatment, thinking I was at my weakest. What he failed to understand was that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about who helps you rise when you do. And with my brother beside me, with friends who became family. I hadn't just survived, I had thrived. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.